Let's get more now, shall we, on the Conservative Party conference in Manchester. We saw the Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, speaking a little bit earlier, and he joins me now from Manchester. Very good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time. Lots to talk about. Let's start on defence matters, shall we? You will have seen the headline, of course, in the Telegraph today. The Defence Secretary saying that he's going to send UK troops to Ukraine. The Telegraph rowing back from that headline a little. The Prime Minister too. What is the reality? Will we see British boots on the ground in Ukraine, do you think?
Well, I saw the headlines. I've just had a very quick opportunity to say hello with Grant. All my instincts would tell me to listen to what the Defence Secretary actually says rather than those headlines, which don't appear to reflect the reality of the situation at all. The point that he made in his speech, and of course this reflects the point that I made in mine, and I have no doubt the Prime Minister and other ministers will reinforce this, is that we stay absolutely committed to our support for Ukraine's self-defence. They are the ones doing the fighting. They are the ones who are defending themselves against Russian aggression. We are supporting them in their self-defence.
Do you think we're ruling out ever seeing British soldiers in Ukraine then while this war continues?
Well, look, you're asking me to speculate. The simple fact of the matter is the United Kingdom is a member of NATO. Our commitment to NATO is very clear, that as a NATO ally, we defend each other. Ukraine is not a member of NATO, but we are committed to support them as they defend themselves. It's an important distinction. It's one that we take very, very seriously. But as I say, our support to them is unwavering. But that's very different to committing British military units to combat.
Yeah, and British soldiers supporting NATO in the Kosovo region. Do you expect UK troops to get involved there?
Well, of course, we are there in order to de-escalate and deter. The British Armed Forces have got a very well-deserved reputation for dealing in very sensitive situations like this in a manner which deters conflict, reduces the risk of violence. That is what the British Armed Forces are there to do, to try and calm the situation, provide reassurance and deter further escalation.
Let's turn our attention then to events up in Manchester. I don't know how you got to Manchester, whether you took the train, but certainly rail matters are playing on the minds of Mancunians, aren't they? Did the Prime Minister bottle making a decision to cut the Birmingham to Manchester leg before the party conference because of the anger surrounding it?
Well, it's worth remembering that since 2010, this Conservative-led governments have committed £33 billion to transport in the north of England. It's incredibly important. It's part of our levelling up agenda. There is enterprise and talent right across the UK. We want to make sure that that is unlocked. Of course, with any major infrastructure project like this, any project of this magnitude, it is absolutely right that we keep careful note of progress and expenditure, and we make credible decisions, pragmatic decisions. No decisions have been made, and until any announcement to the contrary, that is our position. But of course, it is right that we look at...
Yeah. Apologies for interrupting, but when do you think we'll get an announcement? Because clearly people are very concerned, especially in the north of the country. The Mayor of Greater Manchester saying this would be terrible for levelling up if it's scrapped.
Well, as I say, we are absolutely committed to levelling up. We have spent £33 billion in transport projects in the north of England. There are spades in the ground with regard to HS2. We want, of course, to make sure that any decisions about funding, about routes, about sequencing are made properly. So I can't speculate, I won't speculate as to when any announcements will be made. But the point is, we are absolutely committed, and we have evidenced that through the money we've spent and the projects that we have funded to levelling up. And that will, as I say, remain a real priority for this government.
OK, perhaps there's something else you can clear up for me regarding tax. The Chancellor says that the government isn't in a position to talk about tax cuts at the moment, but your Cabinet colleague Michael Gove on Sky News today said that he wants to see tax cuts before the next election. Are cuts coming or aren't they?
Well, the point that I think both Jeremy and Michael, and indeed the Prime Minister, will agree with, is that what we want to see as a government is families, people having more of their own money to be able to spend. It shouldn't be a surprise or indeed particularly exciting or novel news that Conservatives want to see a low tax economy wherever possible. But the point is also inflation taxes everybody. Inflation takes money out of the pockets of hard-working families, the opposite of what we want to achieve. So the priority, quite rightly, is to make sure we bring down inflation. That will give people, that will give families more money to spend, which is ultimately, I think, what we're all trying to achieve.
But inflation isn't a tax cut, is it? Inflation is something that many would argue has been largely caused by your government.
Well, those people would need then to also explain why inflation is hounding governments all around the world. By global levels, the UK's inflation rate is quite modest, but we recognise that as prices go up, families suffer. So what we want to do is make sure we get a grip of inflation. That is rightly a priority. What we intend on doing is cutting inflation, on growing the economy, on bringing down interest rates, because that will give families more of their own money to spend. And that is, I think, a universally desirable outcome across the Conservative Party.
Yeah, so it sounds like you were an early backer of Liz Truss for the leadership. She says that she'd like to see taxes sooner rather than later. It sounds like you also agree with that. Are you going to go to her rally for growth tomorrow?
So you're asking a Conservative whether I would prefer lower taxes. I'm not sure whether you're expecting there's going to be many dissenting views at this conference, because I'm going to break the news to you. There are not going to be many dissenting views. Of course, we want to see.
It's about when. It's whether it happens before the election, after the election, or when inflation comes down. When do you want to see tax cuts?
So we all of us, would like to see them as soon as possible. However, the priority, quite rightly, is on bringing down inflation, because if we don't bring down inflation, the extra money that people might see in their pay packets because of a tax cut will then get taken away with raised prices. So we have to bring down inflation. We want to see that happen as quickly as possible. We are already seeing that because of the tough decisions that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor are making. If you want cheap, short-term, opportunistic, headline-grabbing, but ultimately futile announcements, you've got the Labour conference next week. I advise you to be patient and wait for them.
All right. Are you going to go to that rally, Liz Truss rally for growth tomorrow?
Liz is a good friend of mine, remains a fantastic friend of mine. However, as you can imagine, as Foreign Secretary, my dance card at the Conservative Party conference is rather full. But ultimately, all of us are looking to make sure that the wonderful people of this country, the hard-working people of this country, get to spend more of their own money on their own priorities. That will remain the philosophical foundation stone for Conservative economic policy.
All right, and just finally, you talk about people's priorities. Some are wondering if Rishi Sunak is slowly losing control of his party. Suella Braverman, other contenders for the crown, all positioning themselves. Is that ideal, this close to a potential general election?
Well, look, you can ask other people. I'm sure you'll have a range of ministers coming on your show. From my point of view, I think the right thing to do is for all of us to relentlessly focus on the needs of the British people, on ensuring that we grow the economy, we cut interest rates, we cut inflation, cut waiting lists, stop the votes.
But the best way to do that is with a united party, isn't it? It doesn't feel very united.
Spot on. Well, it is, the best way of doing that is with the United Party. And actually, what we are seeing, and I've spoken to a number of people already since being here, we are seeing a real enthusiasm to take the fight to the Labour Party, to highlight the vacuum where their policy platform should be and focus on delivering for the British people. And I have no doubt that as the British people see that we are the party focusing on them and their needs, that will be rewarded at the ballot box.
OK, you've got a busy dance card. I'll let you go. Foreign Secretary, thank you.
Thank you.